And we continue with Dirshu Mishnah Berurah as we begin Siman Samach, the halachas of continuing the halachas of Kriya Shema. And Siman Samach begins, Siman Samach begins with the title of the Ramah, of the Mechaber. We're having word issues here today. One more time. Siman Samach begins with the title of the Mechaber, Anichmas B'Sekeneses Matzir Tzibur Karin Kriya Shema. You enter shul and you find that the tzibur is reading Kriya Shema she'hifsek b'shas kriya, or they're literally hifsek, they're interrupting or they're pausing at the time of reading. So let's see exactly what is going on over here as we begin the Mechaber. The Mechaber over here in Sif Aleph begins Kara Seirugin. Seirugin usually means out of order. In intervals it means. One more time. Kara Seirugin. The Hainu she'ischel likrois ve'ifsek. You begin saying Kriya Shema, then you pause. Bein b'shtika, bein b'dibur. Whether you pause with silence or whether you pause with talking, v'chazar v'gamra, and then you complete Kriya Shema. Afilu shak de'ligmar eskula yatsa. Even if you waited the amount of time to complete the entire Kriya Shema, you were still yaitze. Afilu aya hefsek machmas oines. Even if the hefsek is due to an oines, still you are yaitze. So here we have learned in a unique halacha that a hefsek is not going to invalidate your Kriya Shema, and you're still going to be yaitze the mitzvah. Says the Rama, if it was unavoidable and you were mafsik, the amount of time to finish the entire Shema, then what should you do? Continues the Rama on the next page over here. What you should do is chayzer l'roish. You have to go back to the beginning of Shema. And that is the minhag. Very important. What is called the amount of time to finish the entire Shema? Says the Rama, it's subjective to you yourself. It doesn't go by roiv b'nei olam. When the Welt at large, when the world at large, it takes the amount of time to read Shema. Has to do with you yourself. As we will get to. And of course, this is going to be a very relevant halacha. Even though everyone's wondering, what do you mean? When am I ever going to be mafsik in the middle of Kriya Shema? Just to give some simple examples. Number one is perhaps someone has an emergency, has to go to the bathroom. Number two is perhaps there's a child that you have to quickly tend to a child for whatever reason. Or number three is there's a real emergency, Hatzalah, or something of the like, and you had to be mafsik in the middle of Kriya Shema. What are you going to do afterwards? So says the Mishnah Berurah over here, what type of hefsek sevkat and aleph bein b'dibur afilu imsach b'meizid, even if you purposely talked after asa isser b'zeh, it's wrong. It's an aveira that you're not allowed to do that. But afal pikin inzar lachza rak l'makav shapasik, you do not have to go back to the beginning of Shema. You go back to the place that you made the interruption. Even if it was in the middle of a bracha, still, you do not have to go back to the beginning. Oshar bracha arucha, says Mishnah Berurah, a gem hidden over here in the middle of Siman Samach. The same thing is going to be if you interrupted your mafsik in the middle of Halal, Megillah, Bracha Mazain, or any other long bracha. Then what is the halacha? Go back to the place that you made the hefsek. You do not have to go back to the beginning of whatever you are reading, whatever you're being yaitze. V'davka says Mishmur Sha'imrim ba'atzmai. It's only if you're saying the words yourself. If you're being yaitze with someone else and he talks, if you're speaking while the person being yaitze you is in the middle of saying Shema, in the middle of saying Megillah, and you talk for a minute, then you missed that minute's worth of words. The Aver Mitzvah each of the halachas, we're going to discuss in its place. Halal, Megillah, Brach Samazay, next at Shayin Sham. The Biur Halacha points out that when it comes to Kriya Shema, probably something that many people are wondering. There is a lechatchila. What is best is to go back to the beginning of the parsha of one it talks on purpose. Because there are opinions. It's a machlokes whether you actually have to go back to the beginning or not. Since there are opinions, the lechatchila is going to be when you spoke b'meizid to go back to the beginning of Kriya Shema. Continues Mishnah Berurah Sefkatan Beis V'yish Oimrim De'im. This is the Ramah, that the Ramah taught us that Yishayim De'im Haya Oynis. If it was an Oynis and you're mafsik even the amount of time to complete the whole Shema, you should go back. Says the Mishnah Berurah Taimam. The reason is if it wasn't an unavoidable mishap, comes out ironic over here. A bit counterintuitive. If it was not an oynis, that you were able to continue reading the Shema, then lo avayashtika, the fact that you were quiet, or the fact that you spoke is not a hefsik. Why? Because instead of speaking, instead of being silent, you were able to at that moment say Shema, and therefore it's not called a hefsik. But if it's a case of an oynis that you're not able to say Shema at that moment, chashiva ashia hefsik, then the break is going to be a hefsik. Because at that moment you were not able to read the Shema. Says the Magen Avraham, what's the oynis? If the man himself says in the Mishnah Berurah, he himself is not royu, he himself is not capable and fitting at this moment to say Shema. Why? Because he has to use the bathroom. The place is not right. You find Sayah there, not such a common case, but there's actual Meiraglayim, actual Sayah on the floor. Therefore you have to wait until you remove it. Aval Oynes Acher points out the Mishmur, another type of avoidable misav kigoin, machas listing, kaigamna, robbers, or another scenario that you're not able to see Shema, like I said, a case of Atzala, that's going to be comparable to the case that you did it willingly. They will not be a hefsek. So Mishmur is pointing out that there's different types of oinsim, that if it's an oynis that you are impossible to read, it's going to be worse. That's what the Ramah is talking about. Because at that moment you're not able to read, and therefore, to real hefsek, you have to go back to the beginning. When it comes to davening, you go back to the beginning of davening. Even different oynis, the halachas of Shmoyne Esrei Ayin Shem Mishnah Berurah Sefkatan Tez Zayin. And what's the amount of time for a night? It's Ligmar Sefkatan Gimel says Mishnah Berurah Ainu Meirosh Ad Saif Afilu Oimid B'Saif. Even you're at the end, you're middle of Hayomer, and you're 2 psukim from the end, and you take a break. How much time do you have until it will invalidate your Shema? The amount of time that you could have read the entire thing, not the amount of time just to complete, but the amount of time to read the whole thing. Says the Mishnah Berurah, this is only the halachos b'di'avad. However, but what's the chatchila? You should never do this. You should never pause to finish the entirety of Shema. Even if it's just being quiet, you shouldn't do it. Even with the Rabbanan, you should not pause, you should not have a hefsek the amount of time to finish the entire item that you are being yoytzev. Be very careful about davening. The evidence will see those that are machmir. When it comes to Shemon Esrei, even with the evidence, you have to go back to the beginning. You should not sing within the Berurah's Kriya Shema the amount of time to finish the entire Berurah's Kriya Shema, which obviously is going to be a lengthy song. Because what's going to happen? The Sheikh Sibur is singing, everyone is being quiet, Al Yadai do to that, and then everyone is not going to be yotzei at some level. Why? Because they're taking a break, they're being mafsik the amount of time to say the entirety of Shema. Venir Ali says, Mishmur, the Kolshkin, the Yishizar, Berurah's Kayanim, Shumadaraisa, says Mishnah Berurah, lots of hidden halachas in today's shir. Certainly, Berachas like Koyanim, which is a din daraisa, Yarichas like Alba Mir, Tachnuna Beis Berachas Koyanim. You should not be Meirich so long because it's going to be a matter of time to finish the Berachas Koyanim. The Kohanim are very quiet for a long time, middle of the bracha. That watch Says Mishnah Berurah, he wants to go with the gain that at all 3 times by Berachas Kohanim you say the Rabbanan Shalayla, the tefillah about dreams, and not the long and lengthy Ratzon. Why? Because there are times, says Mishnah Berurah, and here we see what is the point that's the hefsek. Not when the Kohanim are singing. The point that's the hefsek the Mishnah Berurah is teaching us is when the Kohanim are being silent. And there are times the Kohanim are going to be silent while the tzibur finishes Yiratzon. Sometimes you could have the amount of time for the Kohanim to finish the whole thing, and that's going to be a serious problem. But of course, we're seeing from over here, which I believe most of the minhagim in Klal Yisrael, definitely in the Ashkenazi world, I don't know about the Sephardi world, is to say that Yiratzon the 3rd time. Actually, in Eretz Yisrael, it's very different. They duchen every day and they don't sing at all. But on Yom Tif, it's definitely in Chutz La'aretz that we do say the Yiratzon the 3rd time. But the Kohanim ensure that they don't remain silent. They sing throughout. Mutar lishays afilu k'dei ligmar as kula. To answer Kaddish Kedusha, you're able to pause even out of time to finish the whole thing. Umasham seif shalchon shleim the davka mu aymid b'seif berchazem es v'yatz avayinu yitzil shir chadasha kulam seif sim sam chavav. Avalam adayin legia shir chadasha. If you're not there yet, of yoyser sheyishav v'seirugin be'emza bracha kama pamim bachas mikdei ligmar kula. You should break up the bracha in pieces so that you don't have enough of a break to finish the entire bracha. And we'll see more about this in Siman Samach Vav. And we conclude today's share with Sivkatan. No, we have Sivkatan Hein Vav. Chayzel Arai says to Mishnah Berurah, I know a mefsek b'kriyishma. I feel a mefsek ayarak in the ligmar at kriyishma. Chayzel Arai at kriyishma. You go back to the beginning of kriyishma. Berchas kriyishma lo yavsel Arai bracha shapasik b'seicha. Do not go back to the beginning of the bracha. Lam kein shaykei the ligmar mitchiz berchas yitzar ad goal yisrael. You have to have a long hefsek from the beginning of yitzar until goal yisrael. Ein bir alach the beranu. Te me hefsek b'berchas kriyishma bein bracha lebracha. The Kohen says, if your hefsek was between the brachas, you do not have to go back with the Evid. I will be Kriyishma, then Chayzer le Roish. And Vav says, that if you pause the amount of time to finish the entire thing, you do not go back to the place that you made the pause, but rather you go back to the beginning of the points out the Mishnah Berurah whether you personally are laning a little bit slower, or whether you daven a little bit faster, whether it's a kula or chumrah to follow the person, this halacha is subjective by each and every person. Now let's learn Sif Beis once we're over here. It says Sif Beis, Kara Kriyishma v'nichnas b'sikenas zumata sibur shekayin Kriyishma. You already said Shema, and you walk into a minute and they're saying Shema, Zarch Likos Iman Pasuk Rishon, you have to say with them, the first pasuk, why? When everyone else is saying Shema, you never want to look like you're not willing to accept upon the yoke of heaven with your friends. You're saying different psukim at a place that you're allowed to. Let's say you're not able to be mafsik. You're in the middle of psukim zimra, then loy yafsik. Then you should not be mafsik for Shema. So what should you do? You should fake it. You should say whatever you are saying in the same nigun as the tzibur is saying, so that it appears at some level like you're saying Shema with them. But of course, you're not allowed to be mafsik because you're in the middle of psukim zimra after Baruch Shamar before Yishtabach. Therefore, should not say the words of Shema. It should appear as if, and we're seeing over here that this is a real show, that there's a whole halacha that we don't want it to appear, we don't want it to look like you're not being makabel o malchus shamayim. So what you have to do is, you have to ensure that it appears that you are indeed being makabel malchus shamayim. And we continue with Sif Katan Ches. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Kara Krishma, Vakol Shekain, and certainly Imloi Kara Adayin, and certainly if you have not read Kriya Shema yet, and you walk into a shul and they're saying Shema, Aydayin Zarech Likra Yis Pasuk Rishon, you have to say the first pasuk, Avaloi Yechavein Lotz B'zah Mitzvah say the Kriya Shema. Says Mishnah Berurah, do not have in mind to be yoy to the mitzvah. Keep shein lo tefillin b'rosh. You're not wearing tefillin. We know that you don't want to be made either sheker la'atzmai. V'gam yeh b'loy brachas. And you're saying Shema without the brachas. K'el soif simin menvav Mishnah Berurah in sham. V'nir Ali says the Mishnah Berurah, Ta'afilu imu atzli koydem berachas ha'torah, chidish. You walk into shul and the previous minions up to the berachas Kriya Shema, and you did not even say berachas ha'torah. The Shema, you did not say berachas ha'torah. Ki v'sheina omer ha'pasuk l'shem limud. Says the Mishnah Berurah, you're not learning. Rak shavazeh yizar shlo yomer yoiser mipasuk rishon. You're doing it just with mikabel u'machal shemayim with the rest of the tzibur. So what should you do? Just say the first pasuk. Continues the Mishnah Berurah, got the dash according to Kriya Shema, v'hu adin shar dvar shetzibur oimrim ki goyim til David oyalinu kari imam shekiderach eretz. It's derech eretz. So it sounds like in this Mishnah Berurah, it's not the same level, that it's not looking like you're being mekabel u'machal shemayim, but whenever the tzibur is davening, you want to be davening with them, and I believe everyone knows. Certainly by Aleinu, the chiddush perhaps here is Tila LeDavid. Pasuk Rishon Sivkat in Yod says the Mishnah Berurah Gam Baruch Shem Kavod Machzol Vayit, but that's like Rabbi Beaver Shadach Likros Iman Kol Kriya Shema. Says the Kohen say the whole Shema. Amna now having Pesukah Zimra near Dein Lachmer Yosef Pasuk Rishon. The Belavach he doesn't Mechaber Lachmer Pasuk Zimra Kamei that you should be Machmer Pesukah Zimra. So if you're in the middle of Pesukah Zimra, obviously the place you could be mafsik, then you're just going to say the first pasuk. If not, you're going to say, the Gaon says the Chatchil, you should say the entire 3 parshiyos with them. But if you are in the middle of Pesukah Zimra, the Machaber said, Lo yafsik. Says the Mishnah Berurah over here, you should not be mafsik. Aye v'achreinim kasu say the achreinim the berachas of Baruch Shama v'yishtavach Pesukah Zimra yish havsik k'dei lekabel omachal shamayim. If you're middle of Baruch Shama yishtavach Pesukah Zimra, you could be mafsik. Aval be'berachas shall Kriya Shema. So again, it's an important Mishnah Berurah, because Mishnah Berurah over here is amending that which we just saw. We just saw that the halacha, the Mechaber said that if you're in the middle of the Pesukah Zimra, then you're not allowed to be mafsik. Over here, says Mishnah Berurah, that's not the case. The Mishnah Berurah is pointing out that the halacha is that you are allowed to be mafsik in middle of Pesukah Zimra. You're only not allowed to be mafsik, says the Mishnah Berurah, in the middle of the birchais, the brachais of Kriya Shema. Beina abrakim lo yifsek klal. In the middle of the brakim of Kriya Shema, you don't be mafsik at all. El yomer oisana tevus b'nigun. Rather, what should he do? You should say those words b'nigun like the tzibur is saying the Kriya Shema, and the next page of Mishnah Berurah is not open in front of us. I'll just read the final words. This Mishnah Berurah, that you should read it in the nigun of the tzibur. And okay, we're going to have to pick up from here. 1 second, let me see if I could quickly get the next Mishnah Berurah up for everyone. There it is. Let's see if that works. That says the Mishnah Berurah. That's the end of the Mishnah Berurah. Eliyamer, wonderful. I didn't realize, I thought it continued. Eliyamer, Oisei Davis ben Nigun, that's a psak halachas. Again, one more time. That if in the Berachas Kriya Shema and as well between the prakim, do not be mafsik at all, but rather whatever words you're saying, you should say in the same Nigun. Again, as we see that halacha is that you want it to appear that you are saying the Shema with the Sibur, and Sif Gimel doesn't have any Mishnah Berurah, so let's just read Sif Gimel. Kara Kriya Shema v'nichnas beis HaKnesses u'mata Sibur shekayin Kriya Shema toiv shekimam kol Kriya Shema v'kabel schar kekayirei ba'toira. If you entered into a shul and the Sibur is saying Kriya Shema, then you should say it with them to get the schar of reading the Torah. Agav leinu chayiv rak pasuk misha k'mo shenitzbar, you only chayiv in the first pasuk. So this halacha seems to be just adding on this extra Tosefes Chiddush that what are you doing? You're just getting schar of learning in Torah, and the Ramah again is pointing out you only chayiv in the first pasuk. We'll pick it up from Siman Samach Vav in the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.